Right, in this lesson we're going to learn how to convert a percent to a fraction to a percent, find the percent of a number. Right, so this really is laying the foundation for the chapter. The entire chapter 9 deals with fractions, percentages, decimals. We're going to start doing some more practical calculations like sales tax and how much to tip and that type of thing. So all of those types of calculations fall under this category in Chapter 9. So the first thing I want to go over is just real quick let's see here. Okay, the relation between a fraction, a decimal, and a percent. If you had the fraction 58 over 100, 58 over 100. Okay. The fraction 58 over 100 can also be written as 58 hundredths, correct? As a decimal, because if you divided 58 by 100, you would get 58 hundredths as a decimal. And then you can also write it as a percentage. If I told you today that there was, which thankfully there's not, that there was an 80% chance of rain. Well, 80% out of what? 80% out of 50%? It's always out of 100%. So I could also express that as 58%. So you see, fractions, decimals, and percentages, they all work hand in hand. They all represent a part of a whole. Does that make sense? A fraction is a part of a whole, a decimal is a part of a whole, and a percentage is a part of a whole. All right, so let me get back into... Uh-oh. Hold on. Well, let's see here. Okay, that leads us to example 1. In example 1, we're writing percents as fractions. Well, I just told you that a percentage is a part out of what total? It's a part out of a total of 100%. So in order to write a percent as a fraction, I need to place whatever the percentage value is over 100. And the important thing here is that I must reduce when possible. I need to reduce. Okay, well, can I reduce 37 over 100? Can I reduce that? No, I can't. I can't reduce it. That's in its most simplified form, so that would be my answer. On B, 50%, well, how could I write 50% as a fraction if I were to do it the same way that I just did A? Justin? 1/2. Okay, it would be 1/2. I would write it 50 over 100, and Justin's exactly right. It reduces to 1/2. If you were to keep your final answer 50 over 100, that would be incorrect because that is not the answer in reduced form. Okay, does that make sense? Who knows? You could see this on your SAT in a few days. You could. All right, so I know SAT is right around the corner. All right, now I want you to take a few minutes, and on the bottom of page 415, I want you to go ahead and do numbers 1 through 4 the exact same way that we just did this one. Okay, so 24% can be written as what fraction? 24% is what as a fraction? Tabitha? What would it be?
I forgot to reduce it the last time.
Okay. So 24 over 100. Did anybody figure out what I could reduce it by, Chris?
I reduced it by 2.
Okay. And that's a good point too. Is 2 the biggest number that goes into both? It's not. But if you can't figure it out, there's nothing wrong with reducing it by 2. And then just make sure you reduce it again. You keep reducing until it's in simplest form. So if you reduce it by 2, you get 12 over 50. But you should notice that those are both still even numbers, that you can reduce it again by 2 to get 6 over 25. And that's going to be your final answer. All right, so just make sure you reduce all the way. All right, how many people got that right? Anybody get that right? Okay, good amount. All right, now on number 2, 55% can be written as 55 over 100. Reduce top and bottom by 5, and you get 11 over 20. Number 3, can I reduce 87 over 100? Nope, final answer. And then number 4, 12 over 100, what can I reduce it by? Anybody know? What can I reduce it by? I can reduce it by 2, or I can reduce it by 4, okay? If I reduce it by 4 right away, then I only have to reduce once to get 3 over 25. Okay? All right, raise your hand if you got all 4. Anybody get all 4? Okay. Anybody miss just 1? Anybody miss 1? All right, any questions on, Sebastian? Any questions on example 1? Does anybody have any questions? Anything you're confused about, you're not quite seeing right? Anything? Okay, so changing a percentage to a fraction. Now in example 2, we're going to look at changing a fraction to a percentage. Now, there's going to be 2 ways that we do this. Now, the first way and the easiest way to change a fraction to a percentage is when I have a denominator that can be multiplied by some number to get me to 100. Because what is any percentage always out of? What did I tell you at the beginning of the lesson? It's always out of 100. So this is very similar to our equivalent ratios. I'm creating an equivalent ratio that will be out of 100 because a percent needs to be out of 100%. So now I need to ask myself, how do I get from 5 to 100? What do I need to multiply 5 by to get me to 100? What do I need to multiply 5 by? Anybody know? Justin?
20.
I need to multiply it by 20. Whatever I do to the bottom, I do the exact same thing to the top. And now my percentage is 80%. It's whatever this numerator is, since it's now out of 100, I can make it a percentage, 80%. Okay, so the key is, when I have a denominator, and on your classwork and in this section, all of our denominators will be able to go into 100 evenly, then I just need to figure out what do I multiply that number by to get me to 100. Does that make sense, guys? Alicia, does that make sense? Kevin? Okay. All right, so on B, I have 3/4. Okay, so again, I'm trying to create an equivalent ratio, but it has to be out of 100 because a percentage has to be out of 100%. So how would I get from 4 to 100? What do I need to multiply 4 by to get to 100?
25.
I need to multiply it by 25. Whatever I do to bottom, I do the same thing to the top. And this is the work that you need to show. Okay, this is the work you need to show on your classwork. On any quiz or test, you need to show what you're multiplying by to get to that percentage. 3 times 25 is 75. Your answer is 75%, and that's what you would box as your answer. All right, any questions on example 2? We'll do a few practice ones in a minute. Any questions, guys? All right, so far, we've done a percentage to a fraction to a percentage. They work hand in hand. You can go both ways. Now in example 3, we're finding a percent of a number. And this really lays the foundation for the rest of the chapter. Anytime I want to find a percent of a number. Now, of indicates what operation? Multiplication. Okay, very good. So, anytime I want to find a percent of a number, I need to multiply. But can I just multiply 60 times 75? No, that's not going to give me a part of 75. That's going to give me a huge number, right? So the first thing I need to do is I need to convert my percentage to a decimal. All right? Now, there's an easier shortcut way that you can do in your head, but I want to show you the kind of the process behind it. How can we write 60% as a fraction? How can we write it as a fraction? We can write it how, Alicia? 60 over 100. Now, if I were to divide, because I need it to be a decimal, I can't multiply, well, I could multiply 60 over 100 times 75, but it would be a lot more work. I want it to be a decimal. So what is 60 divided by 100? I can change any fraction to a decimal by dividing top by bottom. You know that from previous chapters. What's 60 divided by 100? All right, so I should see your calculators out on your desk. All right, what's 60 divided by 100? Chris?
1.629.
Nope. You got to divide 60 divided by 100, top divided by bottom. Daniel?
0.6.
It's going to be 0.6. Okay? So here's what happens. Okay? Here's what happens. It's 0.6 or just 0.6. So what did I do to the percentage? I moved my decimal left 2 places. 0.6. So now that I have the decimal version of my percentage, I can multiply it by whatever the total was. 0.6 times 75. And what's 0.6 times 75? Anybody? 45. Okay? All right, I want you to try B. Go ahead and try B. All right, so when I change 35% to a decimal, what do I get, Chris?
0.35.
I get 0.35, okay? Or 35 hundredths, because it's 35 out of 100. And I multiply that by 90, and what do I get?
31.5.
31.5. Raise your hand if you got it. You get it? Okay, about half of you. All right, now let's do the third one. 40% of 150. Someone raise your hand and tell me what's the first thing you do. 40% of 150. Alicia? Put 40 over 100. So 40 divided by 100 is going to give me what decimal? 40 divided by 100. And this is all, you can do this in your calculator. You don't have to show this part. Okay? So what is it, Daniel?
0.4.
It's going to be 0.4. Did you get that, McKee?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you get 0.4. Multiply that by 150. And what do you get? Chris?
60.
You get 60. And that's your answer. All right, we're going to try some of these. I want you to do your turn now, numbers 5 through 10, page 416. All right, so number 5, what did you multiply by? Just tell me, what did you multiply by?
4.
Multiplied top and bottom by 4 to get 40%, hopefully. Okay, number 6, what did you multiply by?
5.
4. Well, did I write that down wrong? Oh, I wrote that down wrong. Okay, you multiply by, actually, let me just, okay, so you multiply by 5. I wrote it down wrong. Sorry, guys. That's a 0. Multiply top and bottom by 5, and you get 15 over 100, and that gives you 15%. All right, number 7, what did you multiply by? 10, top and bottom. All right, 70 over 100, 70%. Number 8, what'd you multiply by? 2. So you get 2%. All right, number 9, how did you solve? What's the first thing you did? Chris?
Put 70 over 100 equals 0.7, and then 0.7 times 900 equals 630.
Perfect. 0.7 times 900 equals 630. What about 10? What about 10? Anybody get number 10? What do I need to do first? What do I need to do that percentage? What do I do to the percentage? Come on, not everybody at once. Make it a decimal. 0.25 times 200 gives us 50. All right, if you understand that, that's everything you need to know for 9.1.